Friends, in this lesson, we are going to see another important topic, which is proportions. If you have not done any of our previous day challenges, then please go back to the previous videos, complete the problems, and then you can start here. Now coming to our day 9 challenge, proportions. In order to explain about proportions, let's take the same example that we have had for our ratios, which is the problem on Rhea and Rose. So this is our Rhea and this is our Rose. Okay, now Rhea and Rose always gets the book in the ratio 3:2. Now, since some more books have been added in the library, let's distribute 3 more books to Rhea and 2 more books to Rose. So the initial ratio was 3:2, and we have to check that whether the book has been distributed in the same ratio as before. Now Rhea has 6 books and Rose has 4 books totally. So now the ratio is 6:4. But we know that if 3 is multiplied by 2 and 2 is multiplied by 2, we get 6:4. So meaning of that is both the ratios 6:4 and 3:2 are same because they have the same basic value. So when two ratios have the same basic value, they are equal. That means they are said to be in proportions. Okay. So let's see how do we get these proportions. If the ratio is scaled up, just like our previous example, 3:2, when we multiply, we get 6:4. So when we get the equivalent ratio by multiplying, then means we are scaling up. So the proportion for 3:4 is 6:8. Similarly, a proportion can be got by dividing a ratio. Say for this example, 9/12, when you divide by 3 on the numerator and the denominator, you get 3:4. So 9:12 is a proportional for 3:4 and 3:4 is a proportional for 9:12. So we get the proportion just by scaling up or scaling down. Okay. Now let's see this in a single way. That is, the proportion is nothing but equivalent ratios, or otherwise equality of two ratios. And how do we express this? A:B is as C:D. This is the symbol that we use for our proportions. How do we call that? Is as A:B is as C:D. Or otherwise it can be expressed as A/B equals to C/D. Or otherwise it can be expressed as A:B equals to C:D. This is the basic definition that you need to know about proportion. Now, let's understand the different terms involved in the proportion. Say for example, A:B is as C:D. This is how we generally write it. This A is called the first proportional. B is the second proportional. C is the third proportional and D is the fourth proportional. Sometimes they will ask you find the third proportional, find the second proportional. How do we find that? Using the pattern that is followed in our proportion. And before that, we must know that the first term and the last term, which is the first proportional and the last proportional, are called as the extremes because they are present as the extremes of our proportion. And the second term and the third term are called as the means or the middle terms. Okay. So now what is the pattern that is generally followed here is the product of the extremes will always be equal to the product of the means. So using this relation, A into D equals to B into C, you can find the unknowns. So what is the main use of that proportion? It's nothing but finding the unknowns in your ratio. So using this expression, you can find the unknowns. Say for example, if you are making a cake, you will be adding the flour, sugar and butter and chocolate in a fixed ratio. If one of this quantity is unknown, then using this proportion relationship, you can find the unknown easily. Okay. Now let's see what are the basic types of proportions that we need to know. Okay. Suppose if you add 1 to a proportion, okay, then you get the componendo. What do I mean by that? Suppose if you have the proportion A is to B and C by D, C is to D. If you add 1 to both the sides, you get C is multiplied to 1 and added with A, right? So A plus B by B will be equal to C plus D by D, like this. So how do we write it in proportion? A is to B, sorry, A plus B is to B will be equal to C plus D is to D. So this relationship is called as componendo. So in the exams, you may be asked to find the componendo directly. So using this relation, you can find the answer easily and quickly. The next type is the dividend, just the opposite. If you subtract -1 on both the sides, you get the expression A minus B by B will be equal to C minus D by D. If you write it in the ratio, A minus B is to B equals to C minus D is to D. Again, if you are asked with finding dividendo, you can use this relation directly and find it. I hope you are clear with the componendo and dividendo, which is nothing but adding 1 to your ratio and adding -1 to your ratios on both the sides of the equal to symbol, right? Now, they may ask you to compare like relation between your componendo and dividendo. So, just the simple same way you have to divide both the ratios. That is, this is your componendo, right? On the numerator, divide them by your dividendo. So what will happen now? All the denominators B by B and D by D will get cancelled. So you simply get A plus B is to A minus B, which is equal to C plus D is to C minus D. This relationship is known as the relationship between componendo and dividendo. Okay. So till now you are very clear with what are proportions, where we use it, what are the different terms involved in proportion, what is the relation between the terms in the proportion, like product of the extremes will be equal to the product of the means. Now, componendo, dividendo, and relationship between componendo and dividendo. Hope you are clear with all the points till now, right? Now, let's go to the next two terms that you should be knowing in proportion. Invertendo. As the name suggests, we will be inverting. What is meant by that? We will be reciprocating the terms on both the sides. So A is to B will be written as B is to A, and C is to D will be written as D is to C, like this. B by A will be equal to D by C. This relationship is called as invertendo. Okay. So though the names look little complex initially, when you practice, it is very simple. Just adding 1, subtracting 1. This is reversing, reciprocating. That's it. And the last term is alternando. As the name suggests again, we are going to alter the terms by multiplying both the sides by B by C. Say for example, A by C multiplied by B by C equals to C by D multiplied again with B by C. So this C will get cancelled. Sorry, here it is B. So B will get cancelled. So you simply get A by C equals to B by C, which means we have simply changed these two terms. Okay. This relationship is called as alternando. So all these terms are important when you go for the competitive exams. So once you know the relations, then you can apply these patterns in your problems and solve them very quickly. Okay. So the next and the last one is your topic, continued proportion. And this is very, very important. Why? Because this compares the three quantities which have a basic relationship between them. Say for example, if there are three quantities A, B and C, they are said to be in continued proportion if A is to B is as same as B is to D, B is to C. Okay. So here only three quantities are involved. So C will be called as the third proportional here. Okay. So this continued proportion is very important because in the competitive exams especially, you will be asked with such problems. Okay. Now, another thing that you have to note in the continued proportion is mean proportion. What is that? Mean proportion of A and C. So we know that continued proportion is A is to B equals to B is to C. So we already know that the product of the extremes will be equal to the product of the means. Here both the means are same, right? So A into C will be equal to B into B, or otherwise B into B will be equal to A into C. So how B into B can be written? It can be written as B square. So B square equals to A into B, which is again further equal to, when you take square root on both the sides, B will be equal to square root of A into C. So this is the mean proportional of your A and C, which is nothing but square root of A and C, both the extreme terms. Okay, so this is proportion is more of like your formula, or you can say the relationship. Once we are clear with the relationship, you can solve any problem related to this. Okay, so now here comes your challenge for the day, which is problem 1 in falls in the first set, which is finding the proportion, fourth proportion and the mean proportion. So find x in the proportion 2, 7, 5 and x by 2. If they are in proportion, find x. The next one is finding the mean proportional between A and C, that is 6 and 24. So now you know all the relationships, apply that and get this. These two are completely based on the patterns or the formulas that we have heard before. Now see problem number 2, which is the third problem, is A and B share some marbles in the ratio 4:5. Okay. Now if B gets 10 more marbles than A, then what's A share? So using the concept, just understand the problem clearly, use whatever we have discussed before, then try to solve this problem by yourself. Okay, I see you all again with our next video, which is the answers for these. Okay, if you can like our videos, give a like and subscribe to our channel for more such valuable lessons. Thank you.